Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. In this video lecture, we shall be addressing an important question: how to approach Indian polity for the civil services examination. At the end of this video lecture, you will have a clarity about what is Indian polity, what is the significance of this subject, what are the sources that you will have to refer for this subject. We will also be looking at some of the myths surrounding Indian polity. But first up, what to study in Indian polity? Basically, you will have to focus on three broad areas. Number one, the Constitution of India. Number two, the laws passed by the parliament or the bills pending in the parliament. And number three, important judicial verdicts. What to study in Indian polity? Basically, three areas. Constitution of India. You will have to study about fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy, president, prime minister, judiciary, elections, panchayati raj institutions. So constitution is one area that you will have to focus. Second, laws passed by the parliament. For example, Aadhaar. Aadhaar is a law passed by the parliament. You will have to study that. Also, there can be bills important for your examination pending in the parliament. You will have to focus on them as well. For example, triple talaq bill currently pending in Rajya Sabha is one area which you will have to focus on. For example, in 2015 mains examination, there was a question on whistleblowers bill. The question asked, if whistleblowers bill is passed by the parliament, there would be no one left to protect. That means even if there are bills but of far-reaching consequences that are pending in the parliament, you will have to discuss them as well. You will have to focus on them as well. So that means when we talk about Indian polity, what all is included in Indian polity for a civil services aspirant? Number one, you will have to focus on the Constitution of India. Number two, you will have to focus on the laws passed by the parliament or the bills of far-reaching consequences pending in the parliament. And number three, important judicial verdicts. Does that mean each and every judicial order or each and every case decided upon by the Supreme Court, you will have to study that? No. All those important judicial pronouncements, all those important judicial verdicts, which are related to the Constitution, which are related to the laws passed by the Parliament, becomes the subject matter of your examination. That means when we look at important judicial verdicts, how do we determine what is important for this examination? If there is a judicial verdict related to the Constitution, if there is a judicial verdict related to the laws passed by the parliament, that becomes the subject matter of your examination. For example, few years ago, Supreme Court said National Judicial Appointments Commission is unconstitutional. There was a question asked by the UPSC on NJAC. Two more examples of important judicial verdicts. For example, the verdict of the Supreme Court in the Sabrimalai case, verdict of the Supreme Court in right to privacy case, verdict of the Supreme Court when Supreme Court said Section 377, which criminalized homosexuality, is unconstitutional. That means all these important judicial verdicts, plus laws or bills, plus the Constitution. That is what you will have to study in Indian polity. Second important area that I want to focus on in this lecture is what is the significance of Indian polity. George Orwell, in his book Animal Farm, wrote, all animals are equal. Later on, he says, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Similarly, for this examination, all subjects are equal, but there are some subjects which are more equal than others. And one such subject is Indian polity. Why? Because I teach it. Not just that, how do we judge the significance of a subject? Based on the sheer number of marks that are allocated to this subject. How? If you look at Indian polity, it is relevant in all the three stages of your examination process, whether it is prelims or mains or personality test. For prelims over the past many years, we have seen on an average 14 to 16 questions have been asked from Indian polity in prelims examination. This number has gone up to 22 as well. That makes Indian polity a very important, significant subject for your prelims examination. If you look at mains, there is a relevance for Indian polity in your GS paper 2. GS paper 2 talks about constitution, governance, social justice, international relations. 250 marks have been allocated to GS paper 2. On an average, 150 to 180 marks are allocated to Indian polity itself. That makes Indian polity one of the most important subjects in your mains examination as well. But this Indian polity, the knowledge that you acquire by following Indian polity, this knowledge is going to help you immensely when you will write essays. That means essays, 250 marks are allocated to essay. While writing these essays in your mains examination, your knowledge, your understanding about Indian polity is surely going to be of a lot of help for you. So Indian polity's significance can be judged from the fact that it is relevant not only for prelims, but also for mains. And in mains also for your essay and also in your personality test. When you will appear before the interview panel, you might be asked about the recent verdict given by the Supreme Court. You might be asked about freedom of speech and expression. You might be asked about whether the office of governor should continue in India or not. You might be asked that despite the fact that we have so many laws, why is it that violence against women is not ending? Why is it that we are not in a position to eradicate corruption from the society? That means your knowledge of Indian polity is going to help you in your interview, in your personality test as well. That is why we say Indian polity is one of the most important subjects in your civil services examination syllabus. But now the third theme that I want to touch upon, what is the right approach to follow for Indian polity? For that, we need to understand the difference between prelims and mains. If we look at prelims, prelims is about two things. Number one, concepts. Number two, facts. That means UPSC will judge your factual knowledge, your conceptual understanding. That's the subject matter of prelims examination. What about mains? Mains is also about two things. But number one, analysis. And number two, elaboration. Analysis of what? Analysis of the same facts and concepts that you have studied for prelims. Elaboration of the same facts and concepts that you have studied for your prelims examination. How? Let me give you a few examples. Let's say, for example, this is Indian polity. And in Indian polity, you have to study constitution. And under the Constitution of India, we have one of the very important constitutional position called the governor of a state. In prelims examination, your conceptual understanding, your factual knowledge will be tested by the UPSC. So UPSC will ask you in your prelims, consider the following statements regarding the office of governor. Which of the following statements are correct? Statement number one, the governor is appointed by the president for a period of 5 years. The governor is appointed by the president, but this tenure is not defined by the constitution. That's number one. Number two, in order to be appointed as the governor of a state in India, an individual should be more than 25 years of age. This statement is also incorrect because constitution only talks about two qualifications for an individual in order to be appointed as the governor of a state. Number one, this individual should be the citizen of India. Number two, he must have completed 35 years of age, not 25. So basically in prelims, your conceptual understanding, your factual information will be tested by the UPSC. But in mains, same Indian polity, same constitution, same office of governor, but then the approach is different. The question can be, governor's office is a relic of colonial era and therefore should be abolished in the interest of cooperative federalism in India. That means we have a same topic, governor, relevant for both prelims as well as mains, but your approach has to be different. For prelims, your conceptual understanding, your factual information will be tested by the UPSC, but in mains examination, you will have to elaborate the same facts and concepts that you studied for prelims. Analyze the same facts and concepts that you've studied for prelims examination. Similarly, let me take a current affairs topic. For example, Aadhaar, a law passed by the parliament. Aadhaar is a unique 16-digit identification number. You tell me whether this statement is correct or not. Second, Aadhaar is a proof of identity. Aadhaar is also a proof of citizenship. You tell me whether both these statements are correct or not. Aadhaar is a unique 12-digit identification number. Number two, Aadhaar is a proof of your identity, but Aadhaar is not a proof of your citizenship. Because even foreigners are eligible to acquire Aadhaar. Even foreigners are eligible to enroll for Aadhaar. So your conceptual understanding, your factual knowledge will be tested by the UPSC so far as your prelims is concerned. But so far as mains is concerned, there are many people who argue that Aadhaar has a huge potential of surveillance. Because of Aadhaar, Indian state can turn into a police state. Because of Aadhaar, our lives will be as transparent to the government as contact lens. And that is why there are people who oppose Aadhaar. So what are the advantages of Aadhaar? What are the disadvantages of the Aadhaar? What is the argument of the critics who oppose the introduction of Aadhaar in this country? That is something which is relevant for your mains examination. So your approach has to be different for prelims. Your approach has to be different for the mains examination as well. What are we talking about? We are talking about how to approach Indian polity for the civil services examination. First, we touched upon one aspect. What is Indian polity after all? And then we realized that for Indian polity, we have to focus on three things: Constitution of India, laws passed by the parliament or bills pending in the parliament, and then important Supreme Court verdicts. Second, what is the significance of Indian polity? Why do people say Indian polity is one of the most important subjects in your civil services examination process? Relevance for prelims, mains, essay, as well as the personality test. That is why it is significant for your success in the examination. Then what is the approach to follow for Indian polity? You have to separate prelims from mains. Your approach for prelims is completely different from that of mains examination. Once you understand the difference between prelims and mains, clearing this examination, cracking this examination is going to be a cakewalk for you. Then let's look at what are the sources that you need to refer so far as Indian polity is concerned. Look at the market and you will find umpteen books on Indian polity. Lakshmikant, D.D. Basu, Subhash Kashyap, NCERTs, for example, so many different sources available in the market. But if you look at the trend of the type of questions that have been asked in the examination over the past many years, we have to restrict the number of sources for Indian polity. Because Indian polity is not the only subject that you will have to study for this examination. There is history, there is economy, there is geography, there is ethics, internal security, disaster management, international relations, your optional subject. You'll have to focus on your essay as well. So can we keep the sources minimum for Indian polity? Yes. What is required for that? Follow M. Lakshmikant is not a great book for this examination, but M. Lakshmikant gives you factual information about various constitutional provisions, about various bodies that are present in the constitution, various bodies that are created by laws of the parliament. So for that factual information, which is very important for your prelims, you will have to focus on M. Lakshmikant. But you need to understand, M. Lakshmikant is not going to be of any help for your mains examination. So if for prelims you have to focus on M. Lakshmikant, for your mains examination, M. Lakshmikant plus newspapers. Because if you look at paper 2, it's all about current affairs. So if you are reading newspapers regularly, if you're making notes out of these newspaper articles, there is no reason why you can't write a good cogent answer in your mains examination. So for mains examination, you will have to focus on Lakshmikant because Lakshmikant will provide you facts, factual information, and then newspaper. Newspaper plus Lakshmikant together should be your source for Indian polity for civil services examination. But then there are two important books that I personally feel are a must read for civil services examination. And I provided the pictures of these books as well. NCERTs of class 11th. One, political theory. Second, Indian constitution at work. Why? Because if you analyze the question papers over the past 2 years at least, There have been many questions asked in the prelims examination related to Indian polity, which cannot be answered merely by looking at Lakshmikant or merely by looking at the newspapers. You should have a deep clarity about various political thoughts. You should have a deep clarity about various concepts that are mentioned in the constitution. And for that, NCERTs are a must. So these two NCERT books plus M. Lakshmikant plus newspapers, that should be enough for your success in this examination. And which newspapers are we talking about? The Hindu as well as the Indian Express. This is something that I always focus on. For this examination, you can't be simply relying on one newspaper. You'll have to focus on two newspapers, the Hindu as well as the Indian Express. And that is the myth I was talking about at the start of this lecture. Number one, M. Lakshmikant is not the only source that you have to follow for civil services examination. Plus, NCERTs are a must. And third, two newspapers are indispensable for your success in civil services examination. And one last point before we end this discussion, revision is the key to success. If you read Lakshmikant once, you're not going to remember anything. You read it twice, you're going to remember quite a few. But you have to revise M. Lakshmikant, your notes, which you make out of the newspaper articles, at least 5 to 7 times before you write your answers, before you write the examination. So revision is key to success. Second important thing that I would like to address, and I think this is a question on everybody's mind, do we need to make notes of Lakshmikant? If you start making notes of Lakshmikant, you're writing another Lakshmikant because every line of this book becomes important. Instead, you can use multiple highlighters of different colors and underline the important points that are mentioned in the book so that tomorrow when you have to revise, you don't have to read the book from end to end. You can only focus on the highlighted portions and then your revision is done. That is something that I wanted to communicate through this video lecture. Thank you for being with us. Have a great day.